This talk is about a very special programme that's been running for the last sort of year and a half, 18 months or so. It was developed jointly by Culture, Health and Wellbeing Alliance and GEM. We submitted an application to the Heritage Fund and were successful. And the idea really was to focus very much on how to make health and wellbeing work within museums very much a strategic thing rather than an ad hoc one-off project. So it's very much thinking about how to make health and wellbeing strategic in your museum. And we selected a number of partner museums, and we're really delighted we've got 2 represented here today. So just to give you a little outline who's going to be speaking. So we have Louise Campion, who is the Working Together project lead, and she's also head of learning and engagement at the Holborn Museum in Bath. And then from our partner museums, we have Philip representing York Museums Trust, and we have Claire Monroe and Jennifer Please from the Scottish Maritime Museum. So particular thanks to them for coming all this way to Olympia. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Louise, and hopefully there may be some time for questions at the end. So thank you very much, Louise.
Hello everybody, I'm Louise, and I just want to start off by telling you a little bit about Working Together. So as Rachel said, it's a partnership between the Culture, Health and Wellbeing Alliance, which is a sector support organisation. Look us up, and GEM, and it was being funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. And the purpose of Working Together was to support and empower 6 museums and heritage organisations across the UK to embed creative health work, because we know that often this work that some of you are probably doing is championed by passionate individuals, and sometimes without infrastructure support or internally embedded structures. So we know that, and we wanted to create a network of 6 partner organisations across the UK to join those museums up so that people could support each other and gain confidence and power to advocate within and beyond their organisations for this work. And I realise I'm talking about creative health, and I just want to make sure that for people that may be thinking, what is creative health? Creative health is the place where we're working between creativity, the arts, museums, heritage, and health, and that could be physical health, mental health, any of those. So it's that place where you're working in between, across both of those things. And I think for many people, we're so used to working on our own that this project was really about trying to join that up and to help the sector build stronger relationships with partner organisations, so healthcare and community partners, social care, and third sector organisations, both nationally and strategically. So that's what we've been trying to do. And I'm going to pass over now to Jen and Claire, who are going to tell you a little bit more about their particular project at the Scottish Maritime Museum.
Hello, I'm just going to scooch through some slides. There we are. Hi, good afternoon. So I think probably, as Rachel said, we're a little far travelled. So I'll put our geographically. So we're southwest Scotland. We have 2 sites in Irvine and Dumbarton. We are a large industrial museum that looks at Scottish heritage, and we also benefit from a wonderful art collection which was part of an NLHF grant a few years ago. So why does an industrial museum want to involve themselves in creative health and wellbeing work? Post-COVID, we live in an area that is SIMD, so Social Index of Multiple Deprivation 1. There's lots of comorbidity in the area. There's lots of families experiencing really traumatic events in their lives. And we wanted to kind of be a place where those people could go and engage in creative activities. We were also being approached by really cash-strapped third sector organisations who had a nice injection of money post-COVID, and then were having families or groups that had nowhere to go, that their connections had been cut off, and we were being approached as a place, and would we take part in this kinds of work. So my reaction as Learning and Access Manager was yes, that's the kind of work we would like to be doing, but I knew we weren't prepared to be there. We weren't ready to take on that kind of work, and fortuitously this opportunity kind of came along for us to get involved in, and I knew there was a framework round about it to support us, so whatever we were doing, we were starting off on the right foot and doing it properly. So one of the things we had to do for the partnership was pick a partner. So our third sector partners are Barnardo's South West Scotland. We had been involved with them before through STEM programmes for employability. So they had brought young people to us that were looking to get into employment, had been out of the school system for a while, and they were engaging with us on a very kind of STEM basis, if you like. But they were keen to partner with a new organisation to see how that would go. So how did it all kind of go? I'm going to talk maybe a bit less about what we did, but more about what the learning points were from it. The first meetings were super important. So our contact at Barnardo's was Fiona Gartland, who managed the whole of the South West service. Those first few meetings were really important, so we both understood where this project was going, that we both understood it was an 18-month project. Co-production is not something that we had done before, and it's not something Barnardo's South West had engaged in before. So there was lots of chat about what co-production is, how that's going to work for both of us. We're very used to kind of prescriptive programmes, if you like. I will deliver 12 sessions for 20 young people to do this thing, where we didn't really know what the outcomes of this project were going to be when we started off, so there needed to be that trust set up between us and the organisation. The other thing that came out of that is if we were going to be facilitating spaces and sessions for families that had experienced trauma, families that were affected by substance misuse, our safeguarding policy was not set up for this. It was kind of basic and very school-centred. So we looked at our safeguarding policy, and Barnardo's were able to look at that with us and see that it was fit for purpose. And we made some changes and put that through board's level. We also, from conversations, could see that museum staff needed additional training. And one of the big things from that was trauma awareness training. And they delivered trauma awareness training for everybody in our organisation, from volunteers through front of house, curatorial, learning and access, and then board members attended that session as well, because it was really important that everybody had the buy-in for this project. Everybody felt comfortable delivering and facilitating this project to make it kind of go forward. We were then able to use creative health quality principles through Cultural Health and Wellbeing Alliance, and that gave us our framework. It was a really useful tool, and Jennifer and I still use that for other kind of partnerships we have going to make sure what we're doing is appropriate and that we're evaluating it properly. And it was only after all this, which probably took us about 4 months, 5 months, we actually then started welcoming families and young people to the sessions. What was our big learning points? As I've said before, I think when we applied for it and it looked like we would then get chosen as one of the 6 museums that was taking part, there was then the conversation to make sure that everybody was on board. Front of house are vitally important to this project, and to making people feeling welcome in a space that they've perhaps never been in before, never crossed the threshold. We're a big foreboding building, so they were vital to the project working. The project's given us a kind of holistic view of engagement. I guess before this we thought of schools, communities, families as almost kind of separate, distinct programmes, and that's not the case anymore. It works really, really holistically, feeds into each other well, and has kind of moved us forward in that respect. Our sessions before were really prescriptive, so you made a thing that looked like this thing. When you came to family sessions, that's not what we do anymore. We have a theme for our family sessions. They're very open, and we have open resources, and the families are able to take forward the theme with support in a way that suits them and their families. This has increased our dwell time in these activities massively. So before it was maybe like 15 minutes family would stay, make their thing and leave. We're now finding families are staying for 45 minutes to an hour in the education space, kind of just enjoying that time together and the space to do these activities without kind of any pressure and just enjoying some family time together. The other thing that was really important for us was the so what. So previously we had been engaging in kind of programmes before, but it was very much numbers orientated, and we were getting to a point where evaluation and then stopping. And one of the people we were involved in that kind of through Louise introduced us was Hannah McGilvery from Scottish Ballet, and her first thing was when we told her everything we were doing, she said to us, so what? It was the kind of, well, that's very nice, but how does this fit in with everything else? So how it fits in with Scottish Government policy, how it fits in with kind of health priorities within North Ayrshire, because what we want this project to be is sustainable and move forward, and not just kind of stops. It's really important for us how we take our impact forward to evidence what we do to keep this work going. The other thing that's changed for us massively is how we use co-production in our work, and I'm going to pass on to Jen, who embraced it and facilitates that.
Hi everybody, I'm Jen. I'm the Community Engagement Officer at the Scottish Maritime Museum, and I come to this from a bit of a different background. I'm a geologist by background. I haven't got a traditional museum perspective, but I was very, very heavily involved and still am in the local community around the museum, and I was very aware of the frustrations that communities can have where a lot of institutions will do things for community but not with them. And so having this opportunity to work in a very much more community-led, co-produced way was absolutely up my street. That was what I wanted to do. And being part of this working together project, what that's been for me has been really valuable because of the training opportunities that came with it. And having the access to a network where we can really talk about the ideas that we have and how we do it, the frustrations that we have along the way. And all of that leads to a bit more confidence building in terms of our approach and what works. We know what works for us for co-production for the Scottish Maritime Museum and for the wider community around us. But this framework that we have, I'm going to pass on to the next slide. This creative health quality framework, it's been really beneficial because it has contributed to museum change and how we interact with communities and families, but also given us confidence that we can trust that we do have the knowledge and the tools to be able to adapt those approaches as we go to suit the communities we're working with, to make sure that that power is shared and that our spaces are safe and inclusive for those who want to be involved with us. And one of the big questions is, well, what is the value? It's quite a daunting one when project-based work that we were doing, it's expecting quantitative results, but we know the real value isn't about numbers. That's not what matters to community. And so this kind of project really has helped us build confidence in how we create those engagement opportunities and those connections with the wider community, so that they can understand what that community, the place and everything else means to them, how the cultural facilities interact with them and what they want from that, and how that then benefits their well-being. So for me, all of this kind of network and the cohort that we have has been really useful for that. We know from our data, from all the feedback that we've ever gathered, that actually locally in Irvine in particular, only about 15% of our visitors are from the immediate local area. And so for part of my project, there was a lot of how do we increase that engagement number by providing opportunities for the local community, not just to take part in activities, but also to have a voice in what those activities were and what those outcomes might be from those activities, whether there was outcomes at all. One of the questions at the beginning of my project was, how do we encourage the local community to engage with us in the first place? For a lot of the people that we've asked, invited in to engage with us, they did not see an industrial museum as being a space for them. They just didn't. They came with a lot of scepticism about what the value was for them. And so to be able to build that trust and connection, we needed to use very creative approaches to be able to try and break those barriers down and allow us to start having conversations that were valuable for the community but also for the museum as well. And this is where my little friend comes in. I haven't given this one a name. You can maybe name it for me. We use rubber ducks now as part of our engagement process. And it's something that probably feels quite familiar to a lot of people. And if you're in an unfamiliar space, having something familiar is probably quite a nice, comforting thing. And I think the value of play in these creative conversations is incredibly important and can't be undervalued. They might have only have been something that people played with in the museum space. But the hope was they would encourage participants to think more about the connections that they had to objects, to themes, to stories in the museum, and start thinking about, is there anything they might want to explore further? Did the objects bring back childhood memories of childhood adventures? Was there something that they were particularly interested in learning more about? Was there any photos or stories in the museum that reminded them of people that they knew from either their present or their past? The idea with the ducks is they take their friend on a journey through the museum and find somewhere for it to live that they feel the most connection to in the museum. And if all they do in that process is they give the duck a name, that's fantastic, because what that's done, they've still slowed down and they've still found somewhere that they feel connected to in the museum space. And then they come back and we have a chat and ask, did anybody name their duck? What did you name their ducks? Where did you leave it in the museum? And more often than not, that starts a conversation that then leads on to more discussions about connection. And those are connections that the people that we're engaging with were very sceptical existed in the first place. It's been a really useful tool for us in that respect. We've also done a lot of thought about how we gather feedback and try and do that in a more creative way. So we're now asking ourselves more questions of ourselves about what those specific questions we're asking to communities and why we're asking those questions. And then we know that a lot of the feedback we get is quite conversational from communities. So using tools like we use Paper People, where people tend to provide quite a lot of self-portraits, but actually the feedback they provide on the Paper People can be quite much richer than we would ever have gotten just doing a traditional kind of paper-based feedback form. We also do tend to spend got more confident in saying to community, how would you like to evaluate this project? What matters to you? Do you want it to be interactive? Are you happy doing things on paper? Do you want to do it on film? That kind of things. It's just built our confidence up in that respect. Finally, for me, there have been quite a lot of projects that we've been doing. A lot of ours have been looking at what kind of exhibitions, what kind of outputs do the community want to build, and what two in particular that we've done in the last year, one with the North Ayrshire Ukrainian community. They came to us and we had lots of conversations that started with a rubber duck that built on that, and they ended up telling us all these stories about Scotland that they knew from their own heritage and their history because of authors like Jules Verne and other very famous writers that actually talk a lot about Scotland. And actually one of the participants told us that he had a huge sense of déjà vu when he came to Scotland for the first time, and it wasn't because he'd been before, but because of all these stories that he'd read as children. And he knew an awful lot about Scottish shipbuilding and everything from Jules Verne stories. And so that kind of conversation started, and they built this exhibition that really tells their own tale of adventure based on a Jules Verne style story. But what it did for us was the links to Scottish shipbuilding from these pieces of literature were not links that we had ever made before. And so they added this new rich dynamic to the storytelling we were given in the museum, which was appreciated by visitors, but also by the museum as well. And the other example here, this one we've just finished in our other museum in Dumbarton, where we had a lot of informal sessions with the community last year looking at photographs of what we had in our collection. And from that, it became clear from the community that there was a real appetite to explore the social side of their local shipyard. And then we asked them, well, how would you like to explore that? And they suggested through stained glass. And so we had a stained glass artist come on board with us, and the community created a stained glass piece of artwork that tells stories about the social history of Denny's shipyard. And again, it tells the parts of the stories that maybe as a museum we might not have ever put on display. And it's from their perspective and what they want to share and what matters to them as a community. And so it's been a really lovely project as well. And if you are in Glasgow over the summer for any reason, Dumbarton's only about 20 minutes away. It's very much worth coming and seeing this stained glass. They've done an amazing job of it. And I'd just like quickly to finish, because we're running over, that Claire's already said that the so whats are really important to us. It's now that point, we've done all this delivery, we've worked with the community, and we want to keep those relationships going. And in order to make that sustainable, our next kind of process is developing how we share those so whats in a way that's digestible for funders, it's digestible to our board and everything else, but it's also really valuable for the community, because it's really important that they can share these so whats as well, to say, look, we've done this then helps us build and empower what we're doing and what we want to share with the local community and beyond about our heritage. And that's kind of where we are at the minute with the process. But yeah, rubber ducks all the way. I'm going to pass on to Philip now.
So hello everyone, so my name is Philip Newton, I'm the Community Participation Manager at York Museums Trust. I'll just put my little slide on. There we go. So if no one's been to one of our sites, we're 3 museums and galleries in the centre of York. So we have a social history museum, which is a castle museum. We have an art gallery, which also has ceramic art, and the Yorkshire Museum, which is archaeology, natural history and natural sciences. We also have a beautiful outdoor space, which is a ruined cathedral, monastery site, where we do a lot of our work. Obviously, building on the fantastic presentation that we've just had, I really just wanted to say why we as an organisation got involved. The main point of it was we wanted to look at our how we use non-collection items in the work that we do that would give us a bit more freedom. So we're not always asking curators for really cool objects that they want to put on displays. It's really to kind of build a different sort of layer of interpretation through different objects. Connect with our local charities. So the partnership that we had was with Dementia Forward, which we've been working with on and off for the last kind of 5 years, but we really wanted to embed them into our general practices. And we did a project with the House of Memories partnership back in 2020 when we were in lockdown to do an app related to York memories, and we wanted to make that a bit more physical. So what's next? What was fantastic about this opportunity was, first of all, there was no rush. So I've literally just launched my project this week, and it's been going on for about 18 months. So there's really no kind of pressure from the funders and from the organisers to get something done quickly. So we're really able to use the training that they provided to really build those relationships with partners, community partners, and not just kind of rushing into things. Amazing level of CPD, which we've been able to transfer to other people in the organisation as well. So it's not just me that has benefited from it. It's all been recorded, there's been notes shared and things like that, which has been fantastic. And also to connect with people that we would never have been able to connect with. York is not far from Glasgow, but we would never been able to really do that, which has been fantastic. The funding, which I don't think anyone's mentioned, the seed funding that was given to us was £15,000, which is a lot. At the time, that was double my budget that I was able to use for all of the participation projects that we would do. So I really wanted to get the best value out of it. So I did 2 projects. One was a created conversation box, which we worked with Dementia Forward on from the very beginning. Now, we should have been doing loan boxes 20 years ago, but we never had that opportunity in the museum to do it through redundancies from learning people to just not having it as a priority within our organisation. So this allowed us to really get that off the ground. But also, a lot of the work that has been done with loan boxes is very much, again, 20, 30 years ago. So tea dances, people that want to use loan boxes today were not born in the Second World War, or around in the Second World War even. So really kind of looking at the different objects and stories that we can bring in with these. And because there was only me doing this work at the Trust, I really wanted a self-led resource. So these are loan boxes to go out into the communities, to go out to charities, to get done. And I should say we got a lot of support from a freelancer, Joe Charlton, who works at North East Museums, at the Discovery Museum, to help us to do this as well. So that's just one example, but we've got 5 themes. So holidays, fashion, the history of York, which was a key one that Dementia Forward wanted us to do. And some others that I always forget, but there's only 5, so I should remember. But they'll be on our website soon. And then we did something a little bit different. So the reason why I'm dressed as Britney Spears for one of these is I'm going to move around a little bit. So, I was going to be a double act today, but sadly Dr. Kimberly Foster, who helped us put this together, is unwell, so it is just me. So bear with me. I'm not an artist. She was. I'm very much a history person. But we commissioned Kimberly to put together an object dialogue box. There's quite a few museums across the country that have these. So it's not new, but it's very much new to us. These are inspired by our collections, but they're created objects. And the idea of them is that they seem to be one thing, but there could be multiple different things. So the audience for this group I want to work with is very much people who are socially isolated or feel like museums really aren't places for them, and trying to draw people in to say, you do not need to know anything about the art that's on display, the history in our sites. It's very much what you want it to be. So, can anyone guess what these are? I've seen these sort of things before. So, initially, they are stuff to... Go on, yeah. Didn't say? Yes, exactly. So they're really to kind of keep shoes stable. But if you put them on your head... There we go. There's something completely different. So they're ears. So this is a really good kind of starting object to really show how objects can be different things at different times, different people and different spaces. I can't hear myself. They also act as ear defenders, which is quite useful. So that's one. And can I have 2 volunteers? Someone shove their hands up quickly. I'm not going to make you do anything horrible, I promise. Cool. So, do you want to stand up? These are quite familiar to us as well, museum boxes. So archival boxes, which is really cool. And then inside, we have the 2 that are on the thing. So would you like to pick one of these objects? That's one object. And then pick that. Fabulous. Now, the point of this, you don't give any direction, so sorry. But you do ask questions. So you say, who would have owned this object? Do you have any ideas of who would have owned it? Do you have a spare microphone? Sorry, I didn't think about that bit through. Sorry. And say your name and where you're from.
Sure. Hi, I'm Cass. I'm from Strawberry Hill House, curatorial assistant. And I'm thinking this is some kind of menacing ex-Vision Express worker who would own something like this. Amazing. I'm seeing a melon baller almost, is what I'm imagining with this. I've got it, I think. Yeah. And then this is like an eye painted on wood. But I'm also thinking of, brilliant, Victorian, theatre puppets. This is the kind of eye and the kind of wood that would be made for that kind of size of thing. And I'm confused as to why this has a hole in it.
There we go.
So I don't think it would work very well as a scooper of, an ice cream, something, Yeah.
Fantastic.
There we go.
So the idea would be, if you're in a music, you can keep all that for a second, it's very nice, to give ownership to the people having it as well. So it's really how you want to handle it, how you want to use it. These objects are made to be destroyed. Hopefully not as quickly today, please, because we've only done 2 sessions with people. But they're meant to be used, they're meant to change, which is the main thing. So the idea would be that they would be in a space. You are guided by these objects to different parts of the museum, different parts of our collection, to really get an understanding of kind of how different narratives can come through in different sort of ways. So we've done this in our Victorian streets, which is kind of links quite well to Victoriana, but we've done it at the art gallery. One person had this next to each painting with their eyes and said, this is how people follow you around the museum. So that's a little mention to our visitor experience team that it shouldn't follow people around. So it's really just a way to kind of make people feel like they are that interpretive stance within it. So would you like to pop it back in the box? Would anyone like to hold the next object? Fantastic, come on up. Thank you very much. Here we go. Do tell me if I'm running over as well. So, would you like to pick the next one up?
This one,
yeah. That one. And are you okay with the microphone, or would I need to hold it? Yeah, of course. So, who do you think would have owned this object?
A princess.
Oh, wonderful. That hasn't come up yet.
It reminds me of something that my daughter would have used when she was little. Open it up and little makeup things and put it on.
Amazing. So automatically it's familiar to you. It's like a familiar-ish.
Yeah. I mean, not the way this inside of that, no,
Yeah.
but I can see her using that. Two different things making one thing.
Definitely. And I'll put this down for a second. What I love about it, this one's very, very tactile, so I'll take that away from you, but I love the glass underneath. So
It's
the
in a
idea,
shell.
again, it can connect to different objects, different spaces as much as possible.
It's a surprise that that's a shell,
Yeah.
but I guess it
So it's
should
embedded.
fit, yeah. You could stick your fingers in there too.
Fabulous. Yeah, pop it back in. Wonderful, and I'll let you have that. Did you feel like a comfort around it at all? Because a lot of these objects can be comforting, but also can be, they're meant to feel a bit uncomfortable. There's one that's a mannequin head with a red, I think it might be a picture. I don't know if I've got a picture on it. No, I didn't think that bit through. They're meant to evoke emotion in some sort of way.
I felt uncomfortable touching it because it was
Yeah.
fragile to me.
Exactly, and one thing that Kimberly always said is it's very unlikely these things will break because people do think of them as museum objects, so it's really important to say, actually, if they break, yes, it would cost me £200 to replace, but it will be a different thing, so it doesn't really matter. Like, these things will continually evolve and change in different sort of ways. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll pop that there. This is where I kick it across the room by accident as well, so if I do that, please don't tell my boss. And another idea of this, what Kimberly would say, it's about claiming space within an area. So this is our art gallery, very hushed, quiet tones. And then Kimberly unravelled this long bit of ribbon to say, this is our space, we can kind of do what we want in it. And getting close to paintings with objects, curators would be terrified if they saw us do this, but the whole point of it is that making new connections in the space that you've been given ownership onto. Another one in our collection, so this is a symbol with museum gloves filled with marbles in it. And the idea is it changes the sound that you expect from it. So by swinging it, it's more of a dull sound. Someone's used this as a hat, like a little fascinator before. Someone saw that kind of museum sort of thing and like wondered about the delicacy of it with the gloves. And then this one is about it's a very kind of a simple object where you just see, but the painting is absolutely beautiful. You can take it to different sort of places. But the idea of spillage, cups overflowing, that sort of thing, to try and kind of move you around the space. Before I move on, I just wanted to say what I really valued about this project was having that ability to kind of go a bit wild with what we were able to do. So although Lone Box is quite standard, there was very little kind of emphasis on you need to do A, B, C, and D in order to get this funding. If anything, a little bit more direction would have been helpful at the beginning, but actually that free space has just been really valuable. And when do you ever get 15 grand just to do whatever you want with it? It's very, very good. So hopefully there'll be a second round of working together with different organisations as well. So thank you very much.
Okay, I'm just going to finish off. So you've heard what two of the organisations have been doing. But I just wanted to also just mention the training. So as part of the project, we delivered a training package of 8 creative health-focused online training workshops that everybody came to. And we based these on the things that museum leads had identified as needing. So I'll just I'll just tell you what they were, and if after anybody has any other training, things that as a sector, if you're working creative health, you're thinking it's crying out, we need this training, please come and tell us, because we're really interested. So the training we did, and... Sorry?
Slide for this.
Yeah, later on, yeah. Well, I haven't actually, no. I haven't got a slide, but we looked at the Creative Health Quality Framework, which was mentioned before. Do check that out. It gives a grounding for this practice, and it's on the Culture, Health and Wellbeing Alliance website. We talked about boundaries with an art therapist who talked to us about where we start and stop as museum professionals. We're not health professionals. We're not offering therapy or counselling. So it's understanding where this work is situated. We talked about safeguarding. We did 2 sessions on co-production, which has been mentioned, the theory and the practice, and decentering museums. We talked about staff wellbeing, and we had input from the Museums Association looking at how we look after ourselves when we're doing this work. We looked at representation and well-being, questioning traditional norms, and how the way museums represent or don't represent stories and histories and people can impact on our staff well-being, our volunteer well-being, and our visitor well-being. And we also looked at understanding government policy and big health systems and health inequalities as well. And the last session that we just had recently was delivered by Curating Visibility with Esther Fox, raising awareness of how our thinking about disability can confine and restrict how museums represent and engage with deaf, disabled and neurodivergent people. So the reason also I'm telling you this is because all of this work that we've done, we're going to develop it and create a training resource which will be offered by GEM. So that's going to be launched in January 2026. So we're working on it right now. And hopefully that will be a brilliant resource for anybody that wants to have the experience that we've all had. So do look out for that. And it will be available through GEM. The last thing just wanted to just say was our learning. What have we learnt? Okay. I know you know these things, and I almost feel like I don't want to say them, but I'm going to say them anyway, just to reinforce. If you're working in creative health work, you know this already, it's really complex, and it takes more time if you're going to co-produce things, and you're going to work and embed things within your community in the way that we've just talked about. So you need to have real flexibility. On a funding application, you might write, we're going to work with 50 people. You don't, you work with 10 people. It's okay. Investing time in partnerships. Again, I heard somebody saying this morning, it's those cups of tea and coffee and time that you give partners where you really get to know people and you build that trust. It doesn't happen in one phone call. It doesn't happen in a day. It happens over a sustained period of time. But what you get from investing that time that none of us have is that basically when things go wrong or stuff is difficult, or you might not even have that much support in your own organisation, you will find that your lovely partner comes to your aid and steps in, and it's about trust. So it's long term. Invest your time in making your partnerships and understanding what your partners need, and it will come back to you in the end. Okay, I think these might be 2 things. Internal advocacy is really, really important, as you know, but always tell people in your organisation why you're doing what you're doing so that they understand the value of your work and you advocate for yourselves. And if you can build a network outside, or, you know, there are lots of networks where this is a network, GEM's a network, CHWA's a network. But if you can talk to people outside of your organisation, it will get you through and support you. Working alone in creative health work, if you are just you or maybe a volunteer, it will impact your mental health and well-being if you aren't supported properly. Yeah, can we just be honest and stop over-promising and over-claiming? Less is more. It's much better to do something small that will last and will be sustainable than doing something really flashy and big that then disappears. It's better for the communities you're working with, and it means that as a sector and in creative health, we are not over-claiming that we're changing the world. And I think it's really important for us all to be honest about that, because it doesn't help anyone when one project makes claims which are too big. So let's be honest about the outcomes. Small is beautiful. Okay, I have to say the word joy. Just recognise, identify joy in the moments that they happen, with your staff, with your partners, and with participants, because they're the moments of why we do this work. And lastly, and I know this is really annoying because I know nobody has time, but we all know, we were talking about it at lunch, just try and get some reflection time, because all the learning, all the thinking, if you just keep moving on to the next thing and you never give yourself a moment to breathe, so I'm giving you permission to pause, right? Next time you just deliver an amazing community arts or whatever session, and then you go back to your desk and you start answering emails, can you just stop and not do that and give yourself 10 minutes to just think about what happened and enjoy it and reflect. And that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks to everybody from the Working Together panel. Brilliant, brilliant session.